What's up, everybody? Welcome to ATL Sports HQ Live, episode 36. I'm Bob Lancaster. You can find me on Twitter at BowlinBob.
I'm Phil Beasley. You can't really find me anywhere right now. You can find me minding my business.
Well, we had talked last week about wanting to have a little comeback show, Thursday. So we were talking, a lot of Hawks news, a lot of United news, a lot of Braves news, but again, kind of got overshadowed. Sunday with the death of Kobe Bryant, very, very unexpected, very unbelievable. It shocked the world, first, with his death, his daughter, Gianna, Gigi, I also want to mention, that, I know the talk is about Kobe and his daughter, but there, were 7 other people that were on that helicopter. I'd just like to briefly mention them, to John Altobelli, who was actually a really, really good JUCO baseball coach, very well known in the California area. Him, his wife, Carrie, and daughter, Alyssa, who played with Kobe's daughter in the select basketball. And then Christina Mauser, she was a basketball coach at a private elementary school. I think she was helping Kobe at the Mamba Sports Academy as a coach, so she was on board. And then Sarah Chester and daughter Peyton Chester. Peyton played basketball with Kobe's daughter, and then also the pilot Ara Zabayan. He's actually a very famous pilot for the Stars. Been doing it for a lot of years. So, just wanted to make sure we paid respect to them as well. But Phil, man, where were you when you heard the news, man?
Yeah, I was driving and I was just kind of scanning through the stations. And, a lot of times I land on 92.9 and heard it, and I just really couldn't believe it. It was just so shocking and just so ironic with LeBron passing him just the night before. It just didn't seem real, and there was just so much speculation of who was on the airplane. Was it on the helicopter? Was it his whole family? Was it his daughters? And then it came out that it was one of his daughters, and it was just even worse. Just really unthinkable tragedy, and just out of nowhere, just like a bolt of lightning, just horrible.
Yeah, man. I mean, it was, I'm a big breaking news junkie. So I actually knew about the helicopter wreck before I ever knew, who was on board or anything like that. I was just on Twitter, saw that there was a helicopter crash in Calabasas, and I'm very familiar with the area, being a West Coast guy. So I know a lot about the California area, and I knew, the Calabasas is where, there's a lot of wealthy people that live there. So I knew, you're talking helicopter, it's not there. There's not a lot of sightseeing helicopters that go through there. So, kind of caught my eye, and I kind of followed along, never in a million years expecting that it was Kobe Bryant. I really honestly didn't even know that he was as big with flying on a helicopter as he was. It turns out that, he's been using helicopters from back in his Laker days to get from his house to the arena. When the news started coming out that, that the helicopter manifest had his name on it, it was just like, it really started to pick up. But very amazing to me that the responsible journalism in this story was done by TMZ, where the major news outlets were, what can we report about, Kobe's kids dying on the helicopter. And at one point I heard Rick Fox was dead on the helicopter. So, just very irresponsible reporting when it comes to it. But, when it comes to someone like that, you and I, we talked before the show, went live, that, the death is, could be the biggest celebrity death, sports death, and I think it's because Kobe was so well known, worldwide. The NBA is such a worldwide sport that, he becomes one of those guys where, you say the name Kobe, you know who people are talking about. It's it's like an Ichiro, or they're those first name people that people know immediately who you're talking about when you mention their name. But yeah, it just I would say that the closest two things that I, doing research and stuff like that, knowing that we were talking about today, I would say is Roberto Clemente. I've heard stories, obviously, before years of my time, but I know that he was a national hero, and there was a lot of people that agreed. But I would say most recently, would be Dale Earnhardt Sr.'s death in the Daytona 500. I would put that up there. But I mean, there were people that, outside the United States, people aren't going to know, weren't really going to know who Dale Earnhardt Sr. was, really, as opposed to where Kobe, like I said, being so big in China and overseas, being, he played, some ball, overseas for a long time. So it was just devastating. I mean, I just hard to believe that, like you said, he was in the news for, another great LeBron passing him. And, and then the next day it's like, and again, it was hard to follow because, he was trending already because, on Twitter because of LeBron passing him. But it was just, I can't, like I said, I really can't think of anything, that in my lifetime that I can remember as far as a death as, that affected as many people as it did. And I think it's because this is the first real death where, someone in my generation and someone in your generation, we all got to see Kobe play, all these years. So, that really hasn't happened. I mean, a lot, like for me, I got to see Jordan in his prime play all his years, as to where you really didn't get to see Jordan in the great Jordan days, but yeah, I just what kind of legacy do you think that Kobe leaves, in the game? I mean, or in general? I mean,
Yeah, just love him, hate him, anything. He had a lot of haters out there, but no matter what, I think everybody is shook by this. Everybody is everybody respects him. Kobe's game. Everybody grew to enjoy it or envy it, but it's gonna have a long life. I think we're not gonna see anybody really in the NBA wear 24 or 8 going forward. I think his jersey will end up being retired league wide. There's lots of people calling for the logo to be updated to being an image of him, and I just think there's going to be a lot of long lasting effects. Obviously, the Lakers were already probably favorites, but I think there's no way they don't go on and win the championship in his honor this year as well.
Yeah, I think I was reading that there's two players today that actually gave up their number 24 jerseys and switched numbers in honor of Kobe. Obviously, we know that the numbers are retired in the Lakers, and Dallas has announced that no one will wear 24 as a Dallas Maverick ever again. But going back in the beginning, I mean, you go back when he was drafted, he came out as very people knew him, but because of his international skills, people weren't really ready to risk drafting him number one. I believe in that draft was Allen Iverson that went number one in that draft. But he knew where he wanted to go. He wanted to be an LA Laker. I mean, I knew, going in that draft that he directed himself that, he wasn't going to play for anybody else because he was born to be an LA Laker. A lot of people don't realize that, when you look at it now, you look and you say, oh, the Lakers traded Vlade Divac to to Charlotte to get him. People don't realize Vlade Divac was not a slouch back in that when that trade was made. It was a big trade. I mean, Vlade was part of championship teams with the Lakers. And so for them to bring in a young guy like that, we know that that he had a little bit of issues early on in his career, made some not the wise choices, but I really think that when Gigi was born, you started to see the maturation of him really start to you really started to see just a change in him, that he realized that, hey, now I've got a daughter that is going to see how I act. And I think having daughters, was the best thing, that ever happened to him. Really grounded him with Vanessa, and just he became such a great dad. I mean, one of my favorite images that I've seen over and over in this last few days has been when they were at watching Trey play, and and you see him bending down, whispering to her, explaining how the plays were working in the game, and just you just started to see what a good dad he was, and it's just crazy. I mean, even sitting talking about it now, but what would you say? What would you say were few of your favorite Kobe moments, in the league?
Yeah, well, obviously you got to start with the 81 point game, and then in his last game, that's one of the most memorable games I've ever watched, because you knew he was going to have a special game, but for him to go out scoring 60 in his final retirement game, I don't care what the shooting percentage was. I mean, it wasn't horrible. I think it was maybe about 38%. But to just go out like that, scoring 60, and bringing the team back and hitting the game winner and all that's just incredible, and something really only Kobe could do.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the 81 point game, is number one for me as well. It was just an unbelievable display. There's a lot of you know it didn't feel like he was trying to get 81. When you normally see someone's put up big numbers like that, they're clearly trying to get numbers. A lot of missed field goal. The field goal percentage is a little less. But one thing about that was I remember it just seemed like he just couldn't miss. He was so dialed in that game. And so that one will always be a favorite of mine. The other one that really made me respect the hell out of him was actually I think I want to say that it was in 2013 when he tore his Achilles, and he refused to come out of the game until after he shot his 2 free throws. He hit them both. I mean, they were flush, and I mean, and what was great was that was a 118-116 win. So, those 2 free throws end up being the difference in the game. It just showed a lot of grit, because a lot of people at that time were really, really on him about the whole Shaq, him and Shaq, and just kind of, given that he was soft, so.
How many people would have just retired after that, though?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Like, for him to even come back and play another couple of years after that is just, it goes to show how one of a kind he was.
Yeah, he was, really the first person that to go out of the country to get medical treatment. I can't remember, like was it the blood transfusions or something like that, what he did in his knees as his knees really started going out, near the end of his career. And so, he went and got those. I don't know if it was not a transfusion, but kind of where they filter the blood, and and so he was a really big proponent of doing that, and keep himself to be able to play those last 2 or 3 years. But yeah, I really like that. I really like that one. Obviously, winning three titles in a row in the Kobe Shaq era. I would say, you would have to, that was the most dominant one too, I think I've ever seen. In the NBA, there was just no one touching them. And it was kind of the first real, I guess, big two that we kind of saw, in the NBA. So those teams were fantastic. I mean, I can just remember so much, so much that those two to get together. It was unfortunate that, they had the rift between them, just, because how many titles you think they could have won had they stayed together? I would say 5. Yeah, I'd easily say 5 in a row. They were so dominant, but you just had two big egos, and two guys that just thought they were the team, and it just didn't work out anymore. So, and there was no way. That was, again, Kobe. The Lakers were his team, so there was no way that he was going to be the guy that had to go. So unfortunately, Shaq did. But one other thing that kind of, when I was doing research for this show, was that I kind of forgot about, was the game where he had 62 points in 3 quarters, but the Lakers were so far ahead, he ends up sitting the entire 4th quarter.
I remember he had 62 and the Mavs had 61 at the end of 3.
Yeah, he had through 3. Yeah, he had 62 and the Mavericks had 61. So he single-handedly outscored the Dallas Mavericks. Going after the 3rd quarter. But
did somebody do that to us a few months ago?
Mm-hmm. But it was. It's really, really been good to see these last few days, to see the how much the outpouring of love and stuff to him. It really shows how much he meant to a lot of people in the league. Because you got kids coming up now, this young generation. Again, like I said, my generation was the Jordan generation. Well, this generation coming up is the the Kobe and LeBron generation. And so you really, the younger guys, so many of those guys looked up to him. You look at Trey. I mean, talking locally, the Trey, having the attachment where Kobe's daughter, that was Trey was her favorite player. How cool was that for for him, that he was able to get that, at least a little bit of attachment with Kobe through that. But yeah, it was just amazing. Again, it's hard to imagine him not being around. He went way, way too young. I mean, and the worst part is that this year he was a no doubt first ballot Hall of Famer. So he doesn't get to make it to the Hall of Fame alive. And it's just so sudden. I mean, the worst are the suddenness of it, where it sucks that this is how we have to appreciate what he did, as he passed, posthumously. It's just it sucks. I mean, that just plain sucks. But another thing that isn't very much talked about, we could talk about his playing career, but after he played, he had turned into quite a businessman. I read an article today in the LA Times that he really took to heart a conversation that he had with Magic Johnson, where Magic Johnson told him that, he said, you can live off your endorsements for the rest of your life, or you can make a difference and do well with your money. And so, he was a really astute businessman. I mean, he, had a company. I wanted to say it was called Bryant and Steibel, with entrepreneur Jeff Steibel, a billionaire guy that invests in media and tech companies. But they really were like the first to invest in Epic Games, which was a big game called Fortnite right now. And Kobe was the first one to realize that Fortnite. He saw something in Fortnite and he invested in that, and that ended up being a gold mine for him. I mean, then they end up. I think it was. Rounding up 2 million in capital just to invest in the Epic Games. So and then he also had a sport drink called Body Armor that he ended up selling to Coke for $200 million, and he had put in $6 million of his money. And then let's not forget that he also won an Oscar award. I mean, he won an Oscar for Best Movie Short. I think it was called Kobe and Me, I believe. I'd have to look it up. I think it was called Detail. That's right. It was was it? Let me see here. Hold on, I'm looking real quick. I take it back. It was called Dear Basketball, and it was a story about his love of the game and stuff like that. And so he ended up winning an Oscar or Academy Award for Best Animated Short in 2018. I mean, how many basketball players can say they have an MVP, a ring, and an Oscar? I mean, not many.
And
so
still found the time to be a great father, which is it's rare for people who are so into something to be there for their family sometimes. You don't really see it much.
Yeah. I mean, I guess here's a good question for you. If you were to explain Kobe Bryant to your future children, what would you say about Kobe Bryant to them?
One of the greatest to ever do it, but still found a way, no matter what, no excuses, to do what he needed to do for his family.
Yeah, I mean, I would say, I would say again that to me, one of the best three to ever play the game. I mean, a lot of people don't put him in their top five. I always have. I mean, I equally say that the best I ever saw was Jordan. I mean, it's just hard pressed for me to change that, but I really put him and LeBron in that same category of players. I mean, it would be hard for me to say one or the other for best second or third. And so I would say I got to witness one of the best three guys to ever play the game. We obviously don't know who will be better in this generation coming up. So but yeah, I mean it was a privilege to get to see him play and do the things that he did, and carve out the career that he did. At least he got to have a full career. We got to see this. This wasn't, a 5-year run where, he dies tragically and we never know what he could have been. We got to know, what he was. So, a gold medalist, he just did so much, So, it's such a tragic story. He'll be honored again, up until his Hall of Fame induction, and that'll be an unbelievable thing. It'll probably break us all to have to see Vanessa accept that award. I can't imagine. I mean, I can't even imagine what she's going through right now. I mean, we haven't, I haven't seen any public kind of stuff from her yet, but I mean, that's to be expected. She got to think of the rest of, she's got other children and other things to worry about, other than the press and stuff like that. But, I'm sure her acceptance of his Hall of Fame, award is just going to be just a tearjerker. So, but, let's kind of stay with the Kobe thing real quick, but let's talk about the Atlanta Hawks and Trae Young. I wanted to bring this up. Trae with the pretty awesome tribute. He came out in the number 8 jersey and then got an 8-second backcourt violation, and then took his jersey off and wore, his normal number. That I thought that was a pretty cool tribute. Do you think that as well?
Yeah, that was an amazing. I wish he was able to wear it uh, for the whole game.
Uh-huh.
That game.
He did. I did find out today that he did have permission from the league to wear it the whole entire game. He just chose not to. So, but what was crazy was Trae Young. I was telling my wife this, and we thought this was crazy. Is Trae Young is the first player to have a 45-point double-double with under 25 field goal attempts against the Washington Wizards since Kobe Bryant on December 17th, 2006. That's unbelievable. But that ain't it. While wearing number 8 on 24 shots and going 81% from the free throw line. I mean, that's just, how weird is that? And Trae was like, it just just meant to be. That's what he said. He said it was proof that Kobe was, watching over him. So, but I also want to throw out, that one thing that I forgot about Kobe was what he did for the women's basketball, the WNBA, big proponent of the WNBA. He knew that Gigi was on the fast track to a career in the WNBA. She was a budding female superstar. He said that, Kobe used to say she has some of the things that he used to have, but I really, really thought it was very, very classy of Gino at UConn to have an empty seat with her jersey on it at the UConn game. But that's not shocking because Gino is one of the nicest guys. He gets a lot of flack for coaching such a dominating women's team, but I'm sure that's where she would have ended up. I mean, let's not lie and say she wasn't headed to UConn. So, he just did so much for the women, and it's going to be a big loss felt through that as well. So I know that I've seen a lot of tributes from the WNBA players as well as the NBA players. So I want to throw that out, but let's kind of move on a little bit, I guess. We can come back and talk if we see through more. That's the joy of this show, and it's just you and I. We can talk about whatever the heck we want to talk about. So, but let's talk about the Hawks in general. It's been a while since we've been on. I think as we said, November was our last show. What a disappointing year for the Hawks. Just very, very disappointing year for the Hawks. Just not working for me. I mean, it just, I can't put my finger on it, but the hustle doesn't seem to be there anymore. The team chemistry doesn't seem to be there anymore. The center position is clearly not there. So, but leadership, I mean, is really Dwayne Dedman and what's his face that left to go to Sacramento or Golden State?
Bazemore left, and
but who just got traded to Sacramento?
Bazemore.
Who?
Bazemore got traded to Portland.
Yeah, Kent. Yeah. So Kent and Dwayne Dedman leaving really, were they that big a locker room leaders that this is what we're getting this year? Hey, what have been your thoughts on the league so far? I mean, on the Hawks. I'm sorry.
It was. I understand what Travis was trying to do, but it just he pretty much set us back a little bit. Yes, you have to have that flexibility. You gotta do what's right going forward. But this roster was so poorly constructed with John Collins getting suspended, the massive injuries. And then combined with how tough our schedule was out the gate, it was just a recipe for disaster. And once it started snowballing, it was just kind of out of control. Going downhill. It seems like we finally caught our footing a little bit, but here we are over halfway through the season, just now, warming up to be a decent, well, I don't want to say decent, just now being a respectable bad team.
Yeah, there's, I mean, again, last year I felt that, except minus a few games where even against the really good teams, we at least competed. I mean, there wasn't like a crazy amount of games where you went into the fourth and you're like, "Yep, no chance." I mean, there were a few. I mean, you and I saw one in Sacramento last year where it was done by the third early in the third quarter, but it just seems like more of that this year than anything. But I mean, I've mentioned to you many times that Coach Lloyd Pierce is not doing it for me anymore. I mean, I just feel like the voice is not being heard. I I think that Trey really wants to be the voice of this team, but there are too many people that Travis Schlenk brought in that don't want Trey to be the voice of this team. And when he spoke up early on in the year in a locker room meeting, there was a couple of guys who are no longer with the team. They're with the team, but they're not playing any minutes with this team. That seemed to take offense to that. But Ducky said, you mentioned how many wins that you thought the Hawks would get, and he's at 20 if they don't get a center at a trade deadline. But why are you going to get a center now? I mean, there's no sense in getting a center now. And then and shooting for 20 wins. I mean, it doesn't make any sense now. You've got a pretty good draft. I mean, so I wouldn't mind tankathon and hoping for the percentages of it's not a guarantee. We know that, but why not give it a shot? I mean, there's a pretty decent center waiting to be picked there in the top 3. So the chances are, that we could get that, or there's always Giannis. I mean, he's a free agent, so but that's just the thing, you're starting to see though, we laugh, but we're starting to see that people talk about wanting to play with Trey. He's got that aura to him where I think people would come here to play with him, where we haven't had that in a very, very, very long time. I mean, but if you would have told me at the beginning of this year, A, we would have the record that we have, B, Jeff Teague would be a Hawk again, I would have laughed at you. So but even to go with the flow of the season, Jeff Teague hasn't been good. He wasn't. We found the backup point guard we needed, and it wasn't him. So it's just been that kind of year for the Hawks. Again, another wasted amount of losing, and so nothing to look forward to. It was kind of like the Atlanta Falcons. A season in a nutshell. Just it was done before it began, and here we are. But what do you want to see for the rest of the year?
I want to see wins. The schedule here on out is too easy to not go like 500 the rest of the way. I still have us getting to around 28, 29 wins. To place us right around last year. I mean, that's how easy the schedule is down the stretch. But I really have to. You got to see some kind of continuity, some kind of some kind of just decency here on out, because it's a bad team, but there's too much talent on this team to be as bad as they were. And thankfully, the last few weeks it has been much better. But we've given up 150 points twice this year, 140 points at least 5 or 6 times, and just countless blowouts. There's too much. There's too much. These guys got to hit shots. That's what it comes down to. These guys have to hit shots. Cam Reddish, DeAndre Hunter, DeAndre Bembry, they gotta hit shots that we get the best quality shots in the league, but hit them at the worst rate. And that's just not
for me. I mean, for me, what I want to see is I want to see improvement throughout the year. The wins don't matter to me at this point. What I want to see is I want to see improvement from Cam Reddish, DeAndre Hunter, because that's why Lloyd Pierce is here, because he is able to coach up the young, rebuild. That's why we brought him here. But if we're not seeing any growth from those two, then to me that's where it will make me feel more like I feel like we need a coaching change. But there's no sense in making a coaching change if you're not going to commit to winning. You can keep on bringing in young guy after young guy after young guy, but just like the Braves, if you don't start bringing in a little bit of bigger pieces to help direct the young guys while giving you a veteran presence, especially a veteran presence down low, which is so desperately needed on this team, then you're just going to keep treading water. I mean, how many first rounders do you need before it's like, okay, when do we start winning? Because now we have 3 first rounders playing, well, 4 first rounders if you count Kevin. We have 4 first rounders playing right now, and I don't know, was Collins a first rounder?
Yeah, he was pick number 19,
Yeah,
2007.
so you got 5 first rounders playing right now, and we're barely about to be a 20 win team. But defense, Doug just said the same thing in chat. Hunter needs to improve defense, and Reddish has been improving. I'll agree with you there. He's starting to get to me. He's starting to be like Trey. Trey struggled in the first half, but then once the NBA games started coming to him, he improved. I definitely see that. I definitely see that in Cam, which is one reason why I was really glad that we were able to get Cam where we got him. DeAndre Hunter, he's a work in progress. I thought that I'm still okay with them picking him where he did, because I think that given him building up an NBA ready body and stuff like that for the position that he plays. He's going to need a couple years, as to where Cam Reddish really is in that, that game shape that he's in. It's just, again, learning the NBA game, so much different from the college game. So, but that's what I want to see. I want to see a continued improvement. Because again, that to me is what how you judge the coaching staff. So, but it's going to be really, really interesting in the offseason to see if Travis Schlink is committed to sticking with what his plan was, but he's definitely got to do better in free agency this year, because this year's free agency was a disaster.
You got to start putting a team together.
Mm-hmm.
Today's climate of the NBA, Trey ain't going to sit here 5, 6, 7 years and be an 8 seed. He's going to want to win.
Yeah.
And if you don't put a team together, he's going to be in OKC or some other big market.
I kind of used to think that, but then seeing his commitment to what he's been doing around the city, huge shout out to that $1 million donation. That just tells you what a good dude he is. But that's evident. You and I got to talk to his dad, and you could just see, you can see the bloodline there, just respectful young man, but what was that?
Really good family.
Yeah. And then, so yeah, shout out to that. And then also shout out to him, though, we mentioned, all-star game starter. Second year all-star game starter. That's huge. First starter since Neek?
Yeah, and I can't believe a Hawk got that many votes. Like,
yeah,
through all our good years, I don't even think we had anybody in the top 5 of any category voting wise. And for Trae Young to get 3 million votes, man.
Well, that, and to get the respect of the players as well. What was he? I think it was number 3 in the player vote.
In the players, number 2 in the media, which surprised me.
Yeah, that one surprised me more than the fan vote. The media are so afraid to cover the Hawks. And you're not getting a lot. They don't deserve media exposure. With how bad they are. So, that one really shocked me. So, it's good to see him get the recognition that he deserves, because I'm telling you, for the last year and a half, he has been as good as as Luka. I mean, I'll come out and say it.
I mean, the record is what it is. 30 points a game is 30 points a game in
Mm-hmm.
the NBA. And when teams are blitzing and doubling you, trapping you at half court, for undersized guard, 45%, 38 from three, and then all the assists on top of it. But say what you want about the defense, but what elite little point guard that features scoring has good defense anyway?
Yeah, I again, and it also it allows the NBA to keep the Luca Trey story going again, since Luca made us a West starter. So so you could keep that little rivalry going. It'll be interesting to see if he does any of the things at the All-Star weekend.
Him and Luca will be in the Rising Star All Star game, so that'll be because Luca will be on the World Team, so they'll be going at each other. That'll be a battle. I mean, that'll be some of the best players in the Rising Star game since the year with like Wade and LeBron and Carmelo. So that'll be a showdown.
Yeah, yeah. There's a lot of good talent for sure. Real quick, we'll stay just with the league for one more thing. Who is your most surprising team in the NBA this year, and who's your most disappointing team in the NBA this year?
Most surprising thing, they got to be the Miami Heat. I had them as like a 7-8 seed coming in. I didn't think Jimmy Butler really moved the needle. And also have to shout out the Toronto Raptors and the Memphis Grizzlies. And yeah, I'll go ahead and shout out OKC. CP3 and Dennis Schroeder really having great seasons. All around, a lot of guys on OKC, what they were able to do, rebuild on the fly, and they have like 10 first-round draft picks in the next 3 years. I mean, they are set up perfectly because, let's be honest, it's OKC. You're not going to get a lot of free agent activity there. And then my most disappointing team, Minnesota and Sacramento. Minnesota is an absolute free fall, and you could say they have 2 stars. So for them to be on a 10-game losing streak right now, that's just unacceptable. 15 and 32. They're almost as bad as us at this point.
Yeah, they are pretty pathetic. You took my most surprising. I mean, definitely Miami and definitely Toronto. I mean, I thought Toronto would be in a free fall, not having Kawhi. But Pascal has been fantastic again this year. He was hurt for a little while, and they treaded. They were able to tread water with him being out, and now he's back. So they're back to almost back to full strength. And they've really surprised me. And as far as disappointing, I'm gonna have one surprise, one non-surprise. One non-surprise is Portland. Portland has just been garbage. But I'm a Carmelo hater, and I think that he is a curse everywhere he goes. So funny that he's now in Portland and now they stink. But the surprising one, LA Clippers. You're starting to see the divide between, the superstars and everybody else on that team getting tired of Paul George and Kawhi getting the preferential treatment over everybody else. And Doc Rivers doesn't have the best track record with handling those type of situations. And now to top things off, you have the Lakers playing with motivation to win, more than any right now. So, so the Clippers have definitely been a disappointment to me. Especially I just never thought I never thought that about Kawhi. Even with the diva crap he pulled in San Antonio, it seemed like last year, him and Toronto seemed to do him really well. But then now it seems like a lot of the same things I didn't like about him that last year in San Antonio seem to be popping up, in LA. but yes, those are my surprises, and our favorites disappointment. But shout out to Tyler Hero. We were talking about him before the show. I said if it wasn't for how devastating John Morant is, we'd be talking about Tyler Hero, in the Rookie of the Year. I mean, we're still going to talk about him anyways, but Ja has just absolutely pulled away. I mean, just a devastating guy. But also, real quick shout out to Zion for making it back. This year, a lot of people said he wasn't going
I
to
didn't
come
think he was
back,
gonna play.
but in one half he already has more 3-pointers in his career than Ben Simmons. So, definitely shout out to him for getting back, though. That's going to do a lot of big boom for ticket sales in New Orleans, and the fact that they'll come here, I think they're here in March, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so that'll be a fun game to go and watch, but because by then I'm thinking he could be off minute restrictions, so be interesting to see full game from him and see what he could put up. So,
Do you think the Bucks can win 70 games?
Yeah, no, I don't think that won 70.
I'm gonna go no too, because your coach Bud is gonna start resting them probably soon.
Exactly. That's why. I mean, if I didn't know Coach Bud as well as I did, I would say yes. But I agree with you in the point where he's not dumb enough to know that he don't need fresh legs in the playoffs. But
Got to be the quietest 40-6 ever.
They're a pretty good team. I mean, I definitely think that they're definitely the front runners in the East, by a large margin. So, I definitely think they're going to represent the East in the finals this year. They've got a legit chance of winning it all. But again, I think right now, I mean, after Kobe passing away, I think the Lakers are now about to play with a purpose. And I know LeBron James, when he plays with a purpose, and he can be as unstoppable as just about anybody. And I just know that he's ready to put this on his shoulders and go as far as Anthony Davis will go with him, but he don't need Anthony Davis. I've seen him do it on his own. He's just that kind of ball player. So I'm taking the Lakers to win it all. I mean, I just think that this is going to be that LeBron, just no way, that he'll let them lose. So you like them to win the whole thing?
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like there's no way they don't.
Yeah, just knowing LeBron. I mean, like I said, when he has a purpose, he's he can be as good as he wants to be. So, but yeah, all right, let's move on real quick. We're running pretty long, but we'll go a little bit longer here. Let's talk about the Atlanta United. We've been kind of really talking a lot about them in our HQ chat lately. Man, what's going on there, man? What is going on there? I mean, it seems like the mass exodus of everything that won you a championship 2 years ago, other than, your stars, are now gone. What's going on?
Changing eras, pretty much. Frank Boyd wants to implement his system with his players, and maybe it'll work out. I don't see it working out this year. I think this is going to be like a reset year, but I feel like with the culture we built in just the 2 years with Tata, we should have went for another South American coach and kept that kind of system going. I think eventually that'll be more of the direction of this league. I think that's more of a winning formula for MLS with how stringent the rules are. You got to play with speed. You got to play with attacking mindset. The European game is a little slower, more defensive. Just hold down the fort. That's not what wins, in my opinion, in MLS.
Yeah, it's crazy to me that just 2 years ago, we witnessed one of the most dominating seasons in MLS history. I mean, where you could tell by mid-season that the United were going to win it all. I mean, there was just no doubt. I mean, it was just one of the most well-rounded teams. Tata had them, just run and gun is what I call their their offensive style, because they just outran everybody. I mean, and then you had Joseph, that couldn't miss at all, and because he'd outrun you. I mean, if you knew how many 2-on-1 situations that they scored on because they were so far ahead of the defenders, because they were so quick. It was fun to watch. I mean, they put 5 goals on you before you blink, and it's something I had never seen in MLS before. And so to see them go last year to this slow, methodical, deboring, I know I said it so many times. It's just, and then watching. I mean, honestly, what I thought, Joseph struggled in that offense. I mean, he wasn't the same player last year. I know he had some injuries, especially near the end of the year, that I don't think. I mean, he'll never make excuses for it, but you could just tell he wasn't playing at full strength by any means. And then watching a complete makeover of this team in the offseason to now try and find guys to play the deboring offense. And but like I said in our chat earlier, that what happens if they struggle again and you've got to make a change at coach? You just set yourself back 2 or 3 years, because you let him bring in guys for that offense instead of sticking with
MLS rules are so stringent that it'd be hard. You can't just go out and buy. It's not like Europe.
Well, and you're gonna, and the thing is the other teams in MLS, with MLS growing, aren't going to sit back and wait for Atlanta to get better. I mean, you're starting to get some new squads. It'll be interesting to see, Nashville, coming in to see what they're like. It's unbelievable. I mean, again, to see the guys they're letting go, the heart of your team. I mean,
lost a lot.
Yeah, I mean, again, guys that your fans relate to, and it doesn't seem like you're not getting a lot of guys that are like, man, are disappointed about leaving, and that just makes you wonder how, if these guys really liked playing for Frank de Boer. So because you're not seeing a lot of disappointment, and hey, it's I thought Gressel, being
They only mentioned the fans.
That to me, I mean, it has the same effect as losing Joseph. I mean, they're the fans related to Gressel, related to Joseph. So you let a name go like that, and that's it. You lose your fan support quickly, man. I've seen this so many times where, again, I understand that you had to make a coaching change. You can't help that Tata wanted to walk away and go coach international, but why not hire an assistant that knows the offense and has been around and knows that style, the style that won you an MLS Cup. So, I mean, I'm not disappointed, because, them going away from that allowed Seattle to win an MLS Cup again this year. So I'm not too disappointed that the path didn't have us coming to Atlanta. But really, it seemed like even last year at the path to the Cup, if it weren't for Joseph really putting the team on his back, they wouldn't even made it as far as they did in the MLS Cup playoffs. So, but I mean, a disappointing loss to Toronto. But I'm not gonna lie, I definitely enjoyed that Toronto had to come to Seattle instead of us having to come to Atlanta to play for the MLS Cup. So, but it's going to be an interesting year for them, and it's coming up soon. CONCACAF is coming up in 2 weeks?
2 weeks away.
Yeah, so we're going to get our first taste of what this new, okay, here's the real thing. Who are we going to see? I mean, we still don't even have a filled up roster yet, so we don't even know really who who's going to be playing. So
It'll be
yeah,
interesting because I mean, if he and Barco don't have the seasons that we think they can have, it's going to be rough.
yeah, it's for sure. It'd be something to watch. But speaking of leaving, we'll end with a little bit of Braves talk. You surprised that the Braves didn't match the Twins' offer to Donaldson?
Not really.
Yeah,
uh, the Braves are still kind of in that let's stack this cash mode. Let's make $1 billion off of our complex
hey
and
man, we
call it
need
a
some of
week.
that. We need some of that truest money, man. That truest money. Yeah, I wasn't surprised either. You talk about the want, not wanting to spend money. I'm on the opposite side of that. I didn't want them to spend the money. 3 years, 70, 75 million was what I said I would have been comfortable with
But it ended
on
up being
34.
494 or something like that.
Yeah, 4 years with an option, but yeah, three years on a 34-year-old, that's enough for me, but they've made some moves. Cole Hamels joins the team on a 1-year contract. Obviously not the Cole Hamels of that, before, but a definite, you definitely need to have a veteran pitcher. Felix Hernandez, someone I'm very, very familiar with. I mean, obviously my second favorite player of all time. So uh, hard to imagine him being out of a Seattle Mariners jersey to me. But I mean, I'm happy he's going to be in a Braves. I just saw the new renderings for the new gold Nike jerseys, and I told my wife, I was like, I wouldn't mind having that in a Felix Hernandez. Let me tell you. So,
I
but
imagine there was a few old men yelling at clouds with those jerseys.
the but my thing is like, I tell everybody, it's like, if Felix was the Felix of old, he'd still be retired. He'd be retiring a Seattle Mariner. He just didn't want to accept a bullpen role there. And you got to remember, he's never been to a playoff. So there may be a little bit of him that, maybe, he might be able to find that next level, knowing that he's now on a playoff team. And boy, if we could get anything out of him as a number 5 starter, he could be a great pickup. But he just got to learn that, he no longer has the King Felix fastball to get him, to blow by hitters. He's got to, learn to throw his other arsenal. But yeah, very happy to see him. And then the last week we picked up Marcell Ozuna, formerly with the Cardinals, who absolutely killed us at Truist Park. So I'm really glad to see a guy that hammers home runs at Truist Park actually do it for our team instead of someone else. That was a 1-year, $18 million deal. I'm okay with that. Again, just like I was with the Josh Donaldson deal. You didn't get what you wanted in the offseason. So go ahead and try again next year. Give the guy a 1-year, 18 mil. He's probably going to give you close to the same numbers that Donaldson did, and he also gives you protection behind Freddie Freeman so that you keep Acuna in the leadoff role. And Brian Snickers, like, I'm not making the same mistake I made last year. Acuna starting and staying in the leadoff role this year. There's no trying him out in the number 4 slot. So very, very excited for this team again. I think them watching the Nationals win the World Series last year may give them a little bit of extra to get it done this year. But now you have the flexibility to add someone, at the trade deadline, to fill pieces if for some reason Austin Riley and Johan Camargo just aren't playing up to par at third base. But I don't think the moves are done yet. I kind of think that the Braves are waiting to see what the decision is going to be on Chris Bryant's arbitration year. I think that if MLB declines and Bryant is 2 years away from free agency, I think the Braves will make a move for him. We know they have the capital for it. I mean, they definitely have young guys to trade away. I wouldn't give the bank for Chris Bryant by any means. I would for Nolan Arenado, but I wouldn't for Chris Bryant. So but I'd be okay if they made a move for Chris Bryant. Good third baseman. I mean, again, he's not like he's kind of regressed a little bit from his superstar status, but I mean, still, I think that he's a better option at this point than Austin Riley is. Austin Riley looked at like he had a hole, really big hole in his swing last year. Couldn't hit the off speed or anything like that. So, that'll be something to watch and see if they make any more moves. But if they're not, I mean, I'm perfectly okay with Riley getting a shot at third, and like I said, Camargo getting a chance to play. One thing that I saw through Chop Fest was it looks like Johan Camargo grew up in the off season. This year, he is doing all his interviews in English. As to where last year he was very standoffish, wouldn't do it without the translator. And I've spoken to him, and I know he speaks good English, So that really kind of disappointed that he pouted all year long, and it showed when he got sent to the minor leagues at the end of the year. It was I think that was a wake up call for him because he has a lot of talent. I mean, a lot of people want him now, So, but it'll be interesting to see, if he maybe outplays and takes that third base job away from Austin Riley. So, but yeah, Josh Donaldson, that's going to be a big loss. He was, fantastic for us last year. After everybody, shout out to Tushar. We miss you, buddy. Clowning on him at the beginning of the year. But it was, he turned out to be such a good piece. I mean, such a valuable piece. We'll definitely miss his bat, but I think Ozuna, will be able to step in there and fill some of that role. But other guys got to step up. I mean, you got a healthy Freddie Freeman this year. He said this is the first off season going first going into spring training where he's not hurting. So you got the elbow problems that caused him to bat like .52 in the playoffs. Got that taken care of, so now he can swing a bat again. And what's crazy is we're going to get to see a healthy Freddie Freeman, where until the playoffs last year, he was, in the talks for MVP of the entire league. So it's scary to think what he could do if he's fully healthy. So. But so we'll definitely keep an eye on them, and coming up soon, I think pitchers and catchers are 15 days away from reporting, so it's almost baseball time again. So last thing before we go, who are you taking in the Super Bowl, Phil?
Mahomes for Kansas City.
Yeah, I'm taking Kansas City.
Everybody.
And here's where I'm going to throw. I'm taking Kansas City by 14 plus. I think that they have one of the most dynamic offenses I've ever seen. So
it's an Andy Reid coach team, though. So
yeah, that's true. But you know what? I thought once that he tried to give it away in the first round, or when they were down 20 points, like before it was nothing. And then this time he has a quarterback that's not gonna let him lose, because he's the most electric quarterback in the league. So shout out to Patrick Mahomes, because he's been the MVP of the postseason playoffs for. To me, he's just been fantastic. So again, to be down 20 plus, and then in 5 minutes make it all back, that tells you what a good quarterback he is. So, but yeah, I'm gonna take the Chiefs as well. I'm gonna go 35-21 is what I think is going to be. 35-21 Chiefs. I think the San Francisco 49ers could win if it was a running team, but I don't think they can handle the passing game. So I'm taking them 35-21. So, but I think that about covers it. We've been going about an hour, so you guys are probably tired of our faces by now. So, but it was good to be back, and appreciate Dougie for coming on in as usual, man. You're a big supporter of ours, so we definitely appreciate you coming in, even though we just randomly do these now instead of a weekly kind of thing. So it's a lot going on.
4 months before the next one.
Yeah, man. I really enjoy doing them. It's just yeah, the whole new job and new issues, new things going on. I don't get home till super late, so you gotta find time to do them. But yeah, I mean, I definitely enjoy them. So the more the merrier for me. So, and maybe next time we can dig up Daric and see, and maybe he can join us for a show. So, but that'll do it for us. Like I said, we appreciate you guys stepping in, and shout out to Kobe, man. We miss you, buddy. So we'll see you guys next time.
Thanks for joining, guys.